My name is Cora Sterling. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life, I have felt like a footnote in my own family story. It is a story they love to tell, one of prestigious careers, advantageous marriages, and a carefully cultivated lineage of what they consider success. In this narrative, my parents, a literature professor and a librarian, were the gentle, intellectual eccentrics, loved but not quite taken seriously. And I, their only child, was an extension of that perception, quiet, bookish, and destined for a life of modest, unremarkable pursuits. For 15 years, my career in hospitality has been a source of quiet condescension at family gatherings. They imagine me managing the front desk of a nondescript chain hotel, a life of name tags and polyester uniforms, a vocation they refer to with pitying smiles as customer service. This year, our annual family reunion brought us to the Haven at Silverwood Lake, a sprawling five-star sanctuary nestled in the Azure Mountains, a place I secretly purchased and began restoring 18 months ago. When my cousin Beatrice, the self-appointed matriarch in training, assigned everyone their rooms, I was given the gardener's cottage, a damp, forgotten outbuilding with a view of the compost heap. What they didn't know was that the master key card to the Pinnacle Suite, a 2,500-square-foot oasis on the top floor, was resting in the silk lining of my handbag. This is a story about the quiet architecture of self-respect, about learning that your value is not determined by the room others assign you, but by the one you build for yourself. Growing up a Sterling meant understanding the unspoken language of hierarchy. My family tree had strong, thick branches, law, medicine, finance, and then there was our slender, leafy twig. My father, Dr. Julian Sterling, could quote Chaucer from memory and spent his days lost in the hallowed halls of a university library. My mother, Helen, curated worlds for others as the head librarian for our city. Theirs was a wealth of knowledge and quiet contentment, a currency that held little value in the gilded world of my extended family. Our designated patriarch and matriarch were my mother's older brother, Uncle Grant, and his wife, Aunt Diana. Grant had built a financial advisory firm, Evergreen Capital, from the ground up, and he wore his success like a bespoke suit, perfectly tailored and impossible to ignore. Their home, a stone mansion in the most exclusive suburb of Northwood, was the stage for countless family events. We would arrive in our dependable but aging Volvo, my mother carrying a home-baked apple crumble that smelled of cinnamon and love, while others arrived with catered platters and bottles of wine that cost more than our weekly grocery bill. Their children, my cousins Leo and Beatrice, were groomed from birth to be the heirs to this dynasty of quiet judgment. Beatrice, older than me by 3 years, perfected the art of the backhanded compliment. She would gift me her cast-off designer dresses with a flourish of performative generosity. "This will look so much better on you, Cora," she'd say, ensuring everyone within earshot understood the charity of the gesture. Leo, a corporate lawyer, was less direct. He simply erased me with polite indifference, his conversations flowing around me as if I were a piece of furniture. "Cora will be fine over here," was a phrase I heard well into my 20s, as I was gently guided away from the adult conversations about stock portfolios and European vacations. Despite their low expectations, I was fiercely ambitious. I worked my way through university, earning a degree in business and art history, a combination that drew confused smiles from my relatives. "Business is so practical, darling," Aunt Diana once mused over Christmas dinner. But art history? What does one do with that? What I did was forge a path they could never have imagined. I started at the bottom, working as a concierge at a boutique hotel in the city. The hours were grueling, the guests often demanding, but I was fascinated. I saw that hospitality wasn't just about providing a bed, it was about curating an experience. It was applied art history, understanding the narrative of a space, the texture of a guest's desires, the subtle dance of comfort and beauty. It was there I met Serafina Dubois, a legendary hotelier who was consulting on a new project. She saw something in me during a chaotic week when I single-handedly reorganized our booking system after a software crash. "You have the soul of an innkeeper, Cora," she told me over coffee one day. "It's a rare thing. It's not about management, it's about guardianship." You're a guardian of beautiful places. Under her mentorship, I flourished. I moved from operations to acquisitions, learning the intricate business of identifying struggling, beautiful properties and breathing life back into them. When Serafina retired to a villa in Tuscany, she co-signed the loan for my first solo venture, a dilapidated historic inn on the coast. "It's a ruin, my dear," she'd warned, her voice crackling over the phone. "But you have the vision to see the palace within." The renovation nearly broke me, but 18 months later, the Quill and Compass Inn opened its doors. It was a love letter to literature and travel, each room named after a famous author, the library stocked with first editions. It became a quiet success, celebrated in travel magazines for its unique character and impeccable service. That first success was the cornerstone of what became the Hearthstone Collection, a small, curated portfolio of unique, luxury properties. My name was known within the industry, but I never sought mainstream press. My crowning achievement, the culmination of everything I had learned, was the acquisition of the Haven at Silverwood Lake. It was a legendary property, family-owned for a century before falling into disrepair. The purchase was a quiet affair, a complex deal that went largely unnoticed outside of hospitality trade publications. Throughout all of this, I maintained a carefully compartmentalized relationship with my family. I never lied, but I learned the art of the vague answer. They knew I worked with hotels, a phrase that allowed them to maintain their comfortable image of me. Perhaps it was a form of self-preservation, a shield against their inevitable attempts to claim my success as their own. Or perhaps, deep down, a part of me was still that quiet girl, waiting to see if they would ever truly see me without the scaffolding of wealth and status. The annual family reunion, I decided, would be the perfect, unfiltered stage to find out. The planning began, as it always did, with a group email from Aunt Diana in early May. Her tone was a familiar blend of feigned collaboration and absolute authority. "Dearest family, Grant and I are simply thrilled to announce this year's reunion location, the Haven at Silverwood Lake. It is a truly spectacular resort, and we have secured a block of rooms for the last weekend of August. As always, Beatrice will be handling the room coordination. Please RSVP by the 1st of June. We anticipate the cost will be approximately $1,200 per family unit for the weekend, to be divided equally for simplicity's sake." I reread the email, a small, wry smile touching my lips. Divided equally. A system that had always benefited those in the premium suites at the expense of those in the standard rooms. Beatrice's name as coordinator was another familiar power play. My phone chimed with a private text from her moments later. "Beatrice, Cora, just wanted to check if you'll be making it this year. Mom was a bit concerned about the cost for you, with your industry being so volatile. We can always figure something out if you need a hand with your share. Just let me know privately." The condescension was so familiar it was almost comfortable, like a worn, ill-fitting coat. The temptation to reply with a link to my company's website was immense, but I resisted. Thanks for the thought, Beatrice. I'll be there. And I can cover my share, no problem." "Beatrice, wonderful. I'll put you down. I'm doing my best to find a suitable room for everyone." I nearly laughed. In 15 years, my suitable room had ranged from a sofa bed in a shared suite to a windowless room next to the ice machine. In the weeks leading up to the reunion, I held a series of discreet meetings with Mr. Davies, the general manager of the Haven. Mr. Davies was a calm, meticulous man I had hired away from a 5-star hotel in Geneva. He understood nuance. "I understand this is unorthodox, Miss Sterling," he said, sitting opposite me in my private office, which overlooked the shimmering expanse of Silverwood Lake. "Consider it an ethnological study, Mr. Davies," I said with a slight smile. "For this weekend, I am not the owner. I am just another guest. I want to experience the Haven as my family does, without my presence altering their behavior or the staff's service." Mr. Davies nodded, his expression thoughtful. "And may I ask what sort of accommodations you anticipate your family will arrange for you?" "If history is any guide," I replied, "the most character-building room you have available." "We don't really have bad rooms, Miss Sterling. Trust me, Mr. Davies. My cousin will find one." We devised a plan. The staff would be briefed. My actual suite, the Pinnacle, would be held for me, accessible only by a private service elevator using my master key. I instructed Mr. Davies to have discreet reports made on any interactions my family had with the staff. I would not tolerate disrespect towards my team from anyone. The family group chat became a flurry of pre-reunion posturing. Uncle Grant announced a major acquisition for Evergreen Capital. Leo had been featured in a legal journal. Beatrice's husband, Dr. Simon Pierce, had just purchased a new Porsche Cayenne they would be driving up. Amidst the flurry of boasts, the familiar, subtle digs at me continued. Uncle Grant, does anyone know what Cora is up to these days? Still with that hotel chain? Beatrice, I think she's a manager somewhere now. I told her we could help with the reunion costs. So generous of you, darling, Aunt Diana replied, adding a string of heart emojis. I typed a simple, neutral response, all good on my end. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the Haven. The stage was set. The cast of characters was rehearsed in their roles. In a few days, my family would arrive at my crown jewel, utterly oblivious that the quiet, overlooked cousin they had so long dismissed owned the very ground they walked on. I felt a strange mix of apprehension and a quiet, simmering anticipation. It was a family reunion that promised to be unlike any other. The drive up to the Haven was a pilgrimage I'd made dozens of times, but seeing it with the impending arrival of my family gave it a new dimension. The winding mountain road, flanked by towering pines, slowly unveiled glimpses of the crystalline lake. Finally, the main lodge emerged from the trees, a breathtaking structure of local stone and Douglas fir, its design a seamless blend of grand tradition and modern elegance. I had overseen every detail, from the hand-forged iron light fixtures to the reclaimed timber beams. I arrived early, using a staff entrance to meet with Mr. Davies for a final briefing before settling into an armchair in a quiet corner of the grand lobby. From behind a large vase of freshly cut delphiniums, I watched them arrive. Uncle Grant and Aunt Diana were first, their new Porsche pulling up to the valet with a soft crunch of gravel. My word, Grant, it's even grander than the brochures, Diana exclaimed, her voice echoing in the soaring, cathedral-like space. It's adequate, Grant pronounced, scanning the lobby as if appraising a stock. Reminds me of that lodge in St. Moritz, though the woodwork there was a bit more authentic. I suppressed a smile. The woodwork he was dismissing was from a 19th-century barn I'd had dismantled and reassembled on-site by master craftsmen. Soon, the lobby filled with the rest of the Sterlings. Leo and his wife, Sophie, arrived in their Tesla, followed by Beatrice and Simon. My parents pulled up in their Volvo, looking slightly awed by the grandeur. I waited until the group had coalesced near the massive stone fireplace before I made my entrance, pulling a small suitcase behind me as if I'd just arrived. Cora, my mother cried, her face lighting up as she broke from the group to give me a warm, genuine hug. We were just wondering where you were. Traffic was fine, I said, returning her hug before greeting my father and the others. Aunt Diana gave me a perfunctory air kiss. Cora, so glad you could make it. Beatrice has everything sorted for check-in. When the last of the cousins had arrived, Beatrice clapped her hands together. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Haven. I have all the room keys, so if you'll just gather round. She began the ritual, a grand dispenser of favor. Uncle Grant, Aunt Diana, you're in the Lakeview Grand Suite on the top floor. Private terrace, fireplace, the works. She handed them a beautifully embossed keycard holder. Leo and Sophie, you have the Mountain View loft, also on the top floor. One by one, the rooms were assigned, a clear descending order of importance. My parents received a lovely deluxe king room in the main lodge, a perfectly respectable choice. Finally, with everyone else holding their keys, Beatrice turned to me. Her smile was bright, but it didn't reach her eyes. Cora, we have a charming little spot for you. It's called the Gardener's Cottage. It's very private and has a wonderfully rustic feel. She handed me a single, plain key card, no folder, no map of the resort. I knew the cottage. It was a relic from the original 1920s fishing camp, a small, detached stone building we used for storing landscaping equipment while we decided whether to demolish it or attempt a costly restoration. It hadn't been occupied by a guest in at least a decade. The last I'd heard from my head of maintenance, it had a persistent dampness problem. "How did you manage to book that?" I asked, my voice laced with genuine curiosity. "I didn't think it was in the reservation system." Beatrice waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, I had a long chat with one of the managers." I explained our situation, a large family needing every nook and cranny. He was very accommodating once I explained who Uncle Grant was. I made a mental note to review our staff protocols on VIP name dropping. For now, I just smiled. "Thank you for all your hard work, Beatrice." As the family dispersed, I made the long walk down a gravel path, past the manicured gardens, towards the back of the property. The gardener's cottage stood alone, partially obscured by overgrown rhododendron bushes. The air here was cooler, smelling of damp earth and compost. The keycard worked. The heavy wooden door creaked open to reveal a small, dim room. A single bed with a thin, lumpy mattress. A tiny bathroom with a rust-stained shower. The lone window looked directly out onto the resort's large, steaming compost heaps. A faint, musty odor hung in the air. This wasn't just a bad room by the Haven standards, it was uninhabitable by any standard I held. This was not an oversight, it was a statement. I set my bag down and pulled out my phone, sending a quick text to Mr. Davies. "Me, have taken up residence in the gardener's cottage. Please confirm it has been properly decommissioned." His reply was immediate. "Mr. Davies, it was, Ms. Sterling. It has no active climate control and is scheduled for asbestos abatement next month. The Pinnacle Suite is ready for you. The private elevator is at your disposal." I slipped the cottage keycard into my pocket and took out my master key. For now, I would play my part. I changed into a simple dress and walked back to the main lodge to join my family for the welcome dinner. I saw my reflection in the polished glass of the lobby doors. On one side, the owner of a multi-million-dollar resort. On the other, the cousin who deserved a damp cottage with a view of the trash. I wasn't angry. I was fascinated. I wanted to see just how deep the illusion ran. The welcome dinner was held in a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake at sunset. The seating arrangement was a perfect map of the family hierarchy. Uncle Grant and Aunt Diana presided over the long table, flanked by their children. My seat was at the far end, next to my parents. "How's your room, darling?" my mother asked as I sat down. Before I could form a reply, Beatrice called down the table. "It's one of the original heritage cottages, Aunt Helen. So much character." "It certainly has character," I said with a neutral smile. "The mildew patterns on the wall are quite abstract." My father frowned. "Mildew? Cora, that's not acceptable. You should ask for a new room." "It's fine, Dad, really," I said, patting his hand. "I'll survive the weekend." Aunt Diana overheard. "You know, Cora, with these historic resorts, there are always a few duds. That's why it's so important to have someone who knows how to navigate the system making the bookings," she said, beaming at Beatrice. The dinner conversation was a familiar performance. Uncle Grant regaled the table with tales of his latest financial conquest. He treated the staff with a breezy dismissiveness, calling our head sommelier, a man who had curated wine lists for royalty, the wine guy. When our executive chef, Jean-Pierre, a culinary genius I had spent 6 months poaching from a 2-Michelin-star restaurant in Paris, came out to describe the provenance of the evening's meal, Grant cut him off. Yes, fascinating," he said, waving a hand. "Just tell me the lamb is rare." I saw the flash of fury in Jean-Pierre's eyes before his professional composure returned. I made a mental note to personally apologize to him later. Eventually, the conversation turned to me. "So, Cora," Aunt Diana began, her tone dripping with manufactured interest. "Still enjoying the hotel business?" "I'm with a different group now," I said simply. "Oh? A step up, I hope," my father asked, ever my champion. Uncle Grant chuckled. "Tough market for hospitality. Probably a lateral move just to stay employed. Am I right?" "Something like that," I murmured, taking a sip of water. The second day was a masterclass in subtle exclusion. Beatrice organized a sunrise pontoon boat tour and a gourmet brunch, an event I learned about only when my mother asked why I hadn't been there. "Oh my goodness, did my text not go through?" Beatrice asked, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. "The reception must be spotty out at your cottage." I checked my phone. There was no text. The breaking point arrived that evening. I was reading in the main lobby when my family returned from dinner, their faces glowing with satisfaction. "That wine pairing was simply divine," Aunt Diana was saying. "The sommelier was brilliant." My mother saw me and her smile faltered. "Cora, we missed you at dinner." I closed my book. I didn't realize there was a special dinner. An uncomfortable silence descended. Uncle Grant cleared his throat. "Well, it was a very exclusive event. The chef's table. Limited seating, you understand." "We assumed," he trailed off. "We assumed it would be a bit out of your price range, honey," Beatrice added, her voice soft with pity. "It was an extra $250 per person." The deliberate exclusion, the casual cruelty of their assumptions, landed like a physical blow. They were sitting in my restaurant, enjoying a culinary experience I had personally designed, and had decided I was not worthy or wealthy enough to join them. That night, back in the cold, damp cottage, I didn't use the private elevator to the Pinnacle suite. I lay on the lumpy mattress, staring at the dark ceiling, the smell of mildew in my nostrils. The experiment was over. The data had been collected. Tomorrow, class would be in session. I woke before dawn, a sense of calm resolve settling over me. I sent a single text to Mr. Davies. "Morning briefing. My office. 6 a.m. Using my master key, I took the service elevator to the top floor. Mr. Davies was waiting with hot coffee and a folder of his overnight reports. "Good morning, Miss Sterling," he said, his expression carefully neutral. "I trust you slept well?" "I slept with a clear purpose, Mr. Davies," I said, taking the coffee. "Today, the charade ends." We spent an hour finalizing the plan. It was not about revenge. It was about clarity. It was about correcting a narrative that had been wrong for a very long time. "Have the entire senior management team meet me in the lobby at 10 a.m. sharp," I instructed. "And Mr. Davies, please have housekeeping prepare the Pinnacle suite for my official check-in. I'll be leaving the gardener's cottage." A rare, broad smile spread across Mr. Davies's face. "It will be our profound pleasure, Miss Sterling. The staff has found it challenging to see you in that cottage. Their discretion will be rewarded," I said. "And one last thing. I want a full engineering and sanitation report on the cottage with photographs. On my desk by noon." With the plan in motion, I returned to the cottage for the last time. I showered in the rust-stained stall and then, instead of my usual casual attire, I dressed for war. I put on a tailored navy blue dress from a designer whose name my aunt would recognize, a pair of understated diamond earrings, and the beautiful Swiss watch my mentor, Serafina, had given me when I closed my first deal. I styled my hair, applied my makeup with care, and when I looked in the small, clouded mirror, I saw not the family footnote, but the woman who owned the room. I walked into the breakfast room at precisely 9 o'clock. The chatter faltered as I entered. All eyes were on me, my transformation from a casually dressed, overlooked cousin to a woman of polished authority causing a ripple of confusion. "Cora," my mother said, her brow furrowed. "You're so dressed up." "I have a meeting later," I said, taking my seat. A server, a young man named Ben, rushed to pour my coffee. "Good morning, Miss Sterling," he said, his voice full of a new deference. "May I get you anything from the kitchen?" "Just the usual, Ben, thank you," I replied. "And how is your mother doing after her surgery?" Ben beamed. "Much better, ma'am." "Thank you so much for asking." Across the table, Aunt Diana's eyes narrowed. The gears were turning. Uncle Grant finally spoke up. "You seem to know the staff very well, Cora." "I make it my business to," I replied with a serene smile. At 9:55 a.m., Mr. Davies appeared at the entrance to the dining room. He walked directly to my side. "Excuse me, Miss Sterling. The team is assembled in the lobby as you requested." The entire table fell silent. "Thank you, Mr. Davies. I'll be right there." As he departed, Beatrice leaned forward, her face a mask of confusion. "Cora, what is going on?" How does the general manager know you? I stood up, dabbing my lips with my napkin. If you'll all excuse me, I said to the table, there's a small staff matter I need to attend to in the lobby. You might find it interesting. Curiosity overriding their confusion, my family followed me out into the grand, sunlit lobby. My senior team, heads of hospitality, finance, marketing, and operations, was standing in a neat line by the fireplace. I walked to the center of the space, keenly aware of my family hovering behind me and the other hotel guests who had paused to watch. Thank you all for coming, I said, my voice clear and steady. I turned to face my stunned relatives. Before we begin our morning briefing, I should probably make a proper introduction for some of my guests. I let my gaze travel over each of their faces, Aunt Diana's frozen shock, Uncle Grant's gaping disbelief, Beatrice's dawning horror, and my parents' beautiful, bewildered pride. For those of you who were unaware, my name is Cora Sterling. I am the founder and owner of the Hearthstone Collection. I paused, letting the words settle in the vast, silent space. And this, the Haven at Silverwood Lake, is our flagship property. Welcome to my home. The silence that followed was the most profound I had ever heard. It was a silence filled with the sound of a 15-year-old narrative shattering into a million pieces. You own this place? Uncle Grant finally stammered. This one and 6 others, I confirmed. Though this one is my favorite. We've worked very hard to restore it. I looked directly at Beatrice. Most of it, anyway. The gardener's cottage is still a work in progress. Her face went completely white. I turned back to my team. Mr. Davies, please have my luggage moved from the cottage to the Pinnacle Suite immediately. I'll be checking in for the remainder of my stay. Of course, Miss Sterling, he said with a subtle bow. And one more thing, I added, my voice still calm. Please prepare new, itemized invoices for all of my family members. No more group averaging. Each party will be billed for their actual accommodations and services rendered, at the full, non-discounted rack rate. As my team dispersed to carry out my orders, I turned back to my family. Their expressions were a kaleidoscope of shame, awe, and rapid recalculation. Now, I said with a smile that was both warm and sharp as glass. Shall we continue our family reunion? I believe someone mentioned a hike to the waterfall. It's a beautiful trail. I designed it myself. The aftermath of the revelation was a slow, unfolding denouement. The hike to the waterfall was a surreal experience. Relatives who had barely acknowledged my presence for 2 days now jostled to walk beside me, asking breathless questions about my company, my life, my work. Aunt Diana cornered me by a scenic overlook. Cora, darling, what a marvel. We are all just speechless. You must know we've always seen your potential. Did you? I asked, my voice gentle. Because my impression was that you saw a glorified maid. She had the grace to blush. Oh, that was just family teasing. You know how it is. No, I said simply. I don't. Uncle Grant tried a different tactic, pulling me aside near the boathouse. Cora, we should talk. Evergreen Capital and the Hearthstone Collection. I see some real synergies. A corporate partnership. We could offer preferred rates to your top-tier guests. An interesting idea, Uncle Grant, I said, my tone pleasant but firm. You can have your assistant send a proposal to my business development office. They vet all our potential partners. The flicker of disappointment in his eyes at being relegated from family to potential partner was deeply satisfying. The most difficult conversation was with Beatrice. She found me on the terrace of the main lodge, her eyes red-rimmed and her usual poise completely gone. Cora, she began, her voice trembling. I am so sorry. Sorry for what exactly? I asked, not to be cruel, but because I needed to hear her say it. Sorry you gave me a derelict cottage, or sorry you got caught? Tears welled in her eyes. Both, she whispered. I was jealous. And petty. And I am so ashamed. I looked at her, my cousin, who had defined so much of my family experience. I appreciate the apology, Beatrice, I said finally. But forgiveness is a different conversation. Our relationship, if it's going to continue, will have to be rebuilt on a foundation of honesty and respect. That foundation doesn't exist right now. The checkout the next morning was the final act. I stood near the front desk as each family received their new, itemized bills. My parents, for whom I had authorized a 75% friends and family discount, were stunned into silence. I gave them a small, private smile. But when Aunt Diana and Uncle Grant saw their invoice, nearly $6,000 for their suite, the spa treatments, the private boat rental, and the wine-pairing dinner, her face turned a shade of crimson. "This is outrageous," she declared to the desk clerk. "There has been a mistake." I stepped forward. "Is there a problem with your bill, Aunt Diana?" "Cora, this is absurd. You can't possibly be charging us the full price." "Why not?" I asked calmly. "You used the services. You stayed in the premium suite. This is what it costs. This is the value of the experience you demanded. I'm simply asking you to honor it." "But we're family," she sputtered. "Yes, we are," I agreed. And this weekend, I learned a valuable lesson about what that word means. It doesn't mean a blank check for disrespect. The bill stands. They paid. They all paid. Some with grudging resentment, others with a dawning, painful understanding. After they had all departed in a caravan of luxury cars and wounded pride, my parents and I walked by the lake. "Was it worth it, sweetheart?" my father asked, his arm around my shoulder. "All this drama?" I looked out at the water, shimmering under the late summer sun. The air was clean and crisp. "I don't know if it was worth it," I confessed. "But it was necessary. I spent so many years making myself smaller to fit into the box they built for me. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done with the box." In the weeks that followed, I received a few tentative olive branches. A handwritten letter from my mother's sister, apologizing for years of looking past me. A stiff, formal email from Leo, acknowledging my significant professional achievements. An invitation to dinner from Aunt Diana and Uncle Grant, which I politely declined. The future of the Sterling family reunion is uncertain. But my own future has never been clearer. My success didn't give me self-worth, but it gave me the clarity to demand that my self-worth be acknowledged by others. It taught me that the most luxurious room in the world is the one you build inside yourself, a place of peace and strength and authenticity, a place whose door you can open or close to whomever you choose. And that is a sanctuary no one can ever take away.